Hello there guys, how you doing? Welcome back, of course, to Rule of Two Review. So today we're doing something pretty fun. We're making another list, which is my favorite thing to do, and come on, we all love lists. So a conversation I heard on the internet recently kind of sparked this idea in me. What we're going to do today is discuss what I think are the 10 best console video game launch titles of all time. Now obviously, of course, we're talking about consoles here. You can't really include PCs because PCs have never really had a launch culture. I mean, ever since the first PC happened, it's just been building blocks and building blocks of newer iterations of better PC hardware. Also, I'm not including handhelds in this discussion because that would open up a whole brand new can of worms that would just make it impossible for me to narrow this down to 10. I might do something like a top 10 handheld game sort of category. I'm not quite sure. Seems like a fun idea, but for the most part, we're going to focus on the goods today, which is just consoles, video game consoles. It's kind of easier to really have this discussion centered around video game consoles. And there was a lot to pick from. There's been some amazing titles that have released over the years and decades and generations, you guys. Most of you know this, but just in case, the quick primer, I am old enough at 36 years old to have been gaming when the NES launched. So I started on an Atari 2600, then the whole 8-bit, 16-bit, 32-bit, and so on. I was fortunate enough to live through all of those wonderful eras in video games, so I think I have just the right kind of perspective to really do this list justice. So with that being said, I'm going to shut up and just get right to the list and start off with my 10th favorite console launch video game. So coming in at number 10 is the game that started it all, and it's Super Mario Brothers for the NES. It's exactly what I said, the game that started it all. It's the main reason that I included it on this list. The game itself is certainly great. When you look at games that have come after it, and even the way Nintendo's kind of improved upon the formula, it's hard to really consider it like the 10th best game, but it's what the game means. It's what it represents. It's what it started. It is almost single-handedly responsible for reviving the dying video game industry at that time. I mean, obviously it was kind of Nintendo as a company and the NES as a console, but if that first Super Mario Brothers game wasn't the hit that it was and wasn't as good as it was when it launched in the mid-80s, it seriously could be a different world we live in. Nintendo made such a perfect execution of gameplay style, platforming, evolving into a screen that scrolls as you walk across it, all these new enemies, the power-ups getting bigger and smaller using a fireball. All these things were mind-blowing at the time. I was 5 years old when my older brother brought it home back in the 80s, and I was like, oh my god, this is incredible. I've never seen anything like this. Never even looked back to my Atari 2600. It was so incredible. So for that and many other reasons, I think it's pretty easy to include Super Mario Brothers as number 10. Coming in at number 9 is a very exciting title, and that is going to be Soulcalibur on the Sega Dreamcast. 1999, $99.99 for those Sega fans who remember that. Dreamcast, what an amazing machine. Long forgotten soldier that put up such a valiant fight. It's very similar to the Wii U nowadays. The Dreamcast is this weird anomaly of a system that almost everyone who played it or owned it loved it. Great reviews, really strong library, excellent for its time, yet mysteriously it didn't sell. And it went the way of the dodo within 2 years. It was Sega's last attempt at a home console, and it was a great swan song because the console rocked and everyone loved it, but not enough people bought it. Very, very sad state of affairs. Soulcalibur, what an amazing game to launch with. That was a really excellent arcade port of Soulcalibur, which was at that time big in the arcades. And of course, in the late 90s, arcades were still fairly relevant. And, gamers as old as me remember when arcades were the bee's knees, man. That was like the best place to go to play video games. And it was really exciting. And then with that era and that generation, the Dreamcast being one of these first systems that was able to kind of bring a true, authentic arcade experience home. And that Soulcalibur game was incredible. That was the first time I remember having a console that I would bring around with me. And some of my other friends who had Dreamcast did the same thing. When we would, go and meet at our friend's house for a typical Friday or Saturday night, I would actually take our Dreamcast over with Soulcalibur so we could hook it up at our friend's TV, and we would just sit there all night playing freaking Soulcalibur because it looked amazing, it played amazing, the music was amazing. I could just watch the demos of all the characters doing their little acrobatics moves forever because it was so jaw-dropping at the time. So one of the most memorable experiences I've ever had with a launch game was easily Soulcalibur on the Dreamcast. Coming in at number 8 is kind of a personal fan favorite, and it's not a game I don't think many people will agree with, but hey, this is my list. I'm happy to include this game, and that is going to be Zombie U on the Wii U, so it's very current for Nintendo's still barely relevant 8th generation machine, the Wii U. And I don't know what to say, guys. I love Zombie U. I have a major soft spot for this game. I love horror games. I love the horror genre in film or video games. It's one of my absolute favorites. And I think Zombie U is a very underappreciated and underrated classic. I really think it's that good. It didn't fully deliver on what we wanted overall, but for a launch game, I think it did great. They actually told a pretty interesting story. They had a lot of unique mechanics. The gamepad integration, to this day, that was the first game to come out for the Wii U, and to this day, I still think it is the best example of how to use the gamepad ever. And there's been some great contenders, Deus Ex, Wonderful 101, Rayman Legends, but nothing compares to what Zombie U did. Visually, it did look very good, but obviously it wasn't quite the next generation step that we wanted. There wasn't a whole lot of variety in the combat. They really wanted you to rely on the cricket bat, which worked for what it was. But what's tough is they gave you all these other weapons that were really cool, and using the sniper with the gamepad thing was so sweet, but you didn't have enough opportunities to use it. So I think that's why a lot of other people didn't buy into it the way I did. I just ate up that atmosphere, man. It was a scary game. I loved being lost in London. I loved all the rain and lightning. I loved the gray, gloomy clouds. I loved turning a corner and being surprised by a zombie that actually genuinely scared me, and not even in a cheap way. I mean, I could just go on and on. It really is a special game, and it set the Wii U up perfectly for me, and it's why I still love the Wii U. You know, like, it was like this first title was so great, and then the Wii U had this very strong first-party lineup that just carried it this whole time, even with the lack of third-party stuff. It just was awesome, man. So a lot of people might not agree with Zombie U, but I'm telling you guys, that game is amazing, and it's my 8th favorite console launch game. And coming in at number 7 is the epic classic, the original Legend of Zelda for the NES. Like I said earlier, my older brother Jason came home with an NES in 1985, I want to say, or maybe 86 in the States, now I can't remember. Whatever it would have been in the States, he came home with that NES. He had Super Mario Brothers, he had The Legend of Zelda. Now, Zelda was special because, and I've talked about this before, the crazy commercials they had for The Legend of Zelda in the 80s, you guys. And I remember what the commercials said when they talked about The Legend of Zelda, and it had this guy running around being like, Tektites, Octoroks, like, Zelda, where are you, in this wacky commercial. And that commercial would end, and it ended with the most powerful words I've ever heard in video gaming to this day. The Legend of Zelda, the never-ending adventure for your Nintendo Entertainment System. That blew my 5-year-old mind into pieces. It never ends? What does that even mean? I couldn't even fathom those words coming from playing River Raid on the Atari 2600 and Frogger. And I was like, a never-ending adventure, and it showed this guy with the sword, and he's kicking at the ass of monsters and doing all these things. It was incredible, you guys. And then the game came out, and it delivered. For 1985 standards, it delivered in spades. It was not really a never-ending adventure, but you kind of see what they were getting at. That iconic opening screen where the black pans open and you got Link there and you got the cave up behind you. It's dangerous to go alone, take this. And then that whole game played out. You're finding dungeons, you're burning bushes, you're blowing holes in caves, you're getting better swords and weapons and power rings. It was freaking awesome. The Legend of Zelda, it's still one of my favorite Zelda games to this day. It compares with some of the best Zelda 3D games that have ever been made. It's a wonderful game, and that launched the NES and Nintendo into superstardom, and it's ingrained in my brain as one of the best gaming experiences I've ever had. Coming in at number 6 is a very obvious one if you know me. That is going to be Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2 Rogue Leader. Oh yeah, for the GameCube, 2001. An amazing game. And it's funny because I've actually been playing that game a lot recently. When I went to the Portland Retro Gaming Expo a month or two ago, you might remember when I made a video about that, that was one of the gems that I picked up for my GameCube, was a excellent mint condition copy of Rogue Leader for the GameCube for $15. I was surprised it wasn't $100. And I've been playing it again, and it's like, oh my god, this game still holds up, and it reminds me of what that game was like when it came out in 2001. And for myself, I'm actually a fan of the prequels, and there are a lot of people who are a fan of the prequels, but obviously they're far more divisive than the original trilogy. I freaking love the prequels. Haters can hate on, I don't even care. I love those. And so what's really interesting for me is my fond memories of Rogue Leader are that that game came out 2 years after The Phantom Menace and the year before Attack of the Clones came out. So we were right smack dab in the middle of brand new Star Wars movie hype with that prequel trilogy rolling. And I remember how exciting Star Wars was. It felt exciting again for the first time in so long with those movies coming out. And then this brand new Nintendo console launches with this brand new Star Wars game that, granted, is entirely original trilogy focused, with the exception of there is an Easter egg you can unlock the Naboo Starfighter if you get enough medals. I don't remember how I did that, but that's the only thing that isn't original trilogy about it. Other than that, it's an original trilogy focused game. But to have this new Star Wars game launch a brand new console when the prequel trilogy had just gotten rolling was really exciting. And the game is incredible. The production value is off the charts. All the voiceover, the mission examples, the authentic attention to detail with all of the ships, the amazing graphics and music. I just can't say enough. Also, a random aside, whoever it is that does the voice acting for Luke Skywalker in that game is awesome. He really sounds like young Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker. I feel like if they ever needed a voiceover for a young Luke Skywalker, maybe in Star Wars Rebels, that's the guy that they should get. But regardless, one of the best launch titles I've ever played for a video game console, Star Wars Rogue Leader for the GameCube. At number 5 is a game a lot of you probably knew you were going to see on this list, and that is going to be the original Halo Combat Evolved for the Xbox. Also in 2001. This game launched 2 days before Rogue Leader did for the GameCube, funnily enough. I mean, what else is there to say about Halo that hasn't been said? It's Halo. It's the original Halo. I'll never forget, one of my fondest memories in gaming ever really was that first week that came out. I was 21 years old when the GameCube and the Xbox launched, so I was old enough to do adult things. And I remember my buddy Steve got an Xbox. He had Halo, and every day for weeks, me and my other buddy Matt, we would go over to Steve's house. We would sit there until the wee hours in the morning, drinking beer, playing through that campaign co-op. The fact that we were split-screen co-op with this amazing first-person shooter game, beautiful graphics, really cool campaign and story going on, and the fact that we were running through this and you had this squad of AI compadres running along with you, talking and doing, oh, we gotta go, cover this way, come to the left, there's a sniper up there. That shit, we'd never seen that before. You guys, that was so incredible back in 2001. And for 2 weeks, we just met every night. We just hang out, we drank beer, we smoked our cigarettes, and we just played Halo, man. And it was the best. It was such an amazing experience. The game is incredible. You know, it really revolutionized the console first-person experience. You know, a lot of people from that era will tell you that. It finished what GoldenEye and the N64 started in '97. Because GoldenEye kind of broke the plane of like, hey, you can sort of make shooters work on a console. And especially in the multiplayer arena, that's what that did. And then Halo, several years later, actually nailed it. Because not only was the campaign and the controls and the graphics great, but really the multiplayer was awesome too. Obviously no online play, but ask anyone who was gaming in that era, and they will tell you they were just fine getting 4-player, split-screen, 2-player, using the hub to put multiple Xboxes together to play through all the Blood Gulch maps and all of those multiplayer maps just offline, man. We didn't need the internet. We didn't need headsets. We were doing a couch co-op, and Halo made that awesome. So without question, and I'm a Halo fanboy, I'm a Halo super fan, without question, the first Halo is the 5th best console launch game I've ever played. At number 4 is another fan favorite of mine personally, and that is the original Sonic the Hedgehog for the Sega Genesis. Gotta go fast. Oh yeah, it's the best. So it's Sonic the Hedgehog, man. It's 16-bit blast processing. I'll tell you guys right now, for myself, having been gaming through all of the relevant console generations, that 16-bit era was absolutely my favorite. I have the fondest memories of that war between Sega and Nintendo. I think the Genesis was a spectacular video game console, just like the Super Nintendo was alongside of it. And through that, we had a Genesis. You know, that's the system we had. We had friends with Super Nintendo, so I played a ton. I would borrow it all the time. But we, specifically, my younger brother and I, we had a Sega Genesis. And it was actually playing my friend's copy of Sonic the Hedgehog at his house that made me realize that was the system I wanted at the time. Because my folks were going to buy us either a Super Nintendo or a Genesis. And I didn't know which one I wanted, but my buddy had Sonic the Hedgehog. When I played that, I was like, this is amazing. This is what I want. So that's what we had our parents get us, was a Sega Genesis and Sonic the Hedgehog. And it's great, man. I love Sonic to this day. He's one of my favorite video game characters. I love it when his games are awesome. Obviously, it's a little bit more controversial and kind of rocky when it comes to games nowadays, but back when that launched in the Genesis era, Sonic the Hedgehog was the shit, man. He was super cool. He had that 90s attitude. He was the perfect foil for what Mario was and what Mario represented. And that first Sonic trilogy is an amazing series. The second is my favorite and arguably the best. But when you look at console launch games, it is impossible to have that conversation without talking about the one and only Sonic the Hedgehog. All right, we're coming into the top 3, you guys. Very exciting times. And at number 3 is that rival to Sonic the Hedgehog, and it's Super Mario World on the Super Nintendo, launching the same year. So Super Mario World is that quintessential Mario side-scrolling experience. When I look at all the side-scrolling Mario games, which kind of are my favorite, it's hard for me to actually pick the one that's my favorite because Super Mario Bros. 3 is incredible. Yoshi's Island is incredible. They've done Super Mario Bros. 2 underrated, so very good. The new Super Mario Bros. Games, especially that first one, are so fantastic. But you know what? There is no way any of those games are better than what Super Mario World was on the Super Nintendo. And I've told this story a couple of times as well. I remember the first time I looked at a Nintendo Power, that was the first time Nintendo was kind of discussing a Super Nintendo, a new Nintendo console. You thought the Nintendo was cool, the NES. What if we told you we were making a new Nintendo that's super? What? What does that even mean? And I remember looking at the back of this issue of Nintendo Power, and there were 2 screenshots at the bottom of this one page that showed Super Mario World. And when I looked at those graphics, that looked like a cartoon come to life, and Mario jumping over this bullet bill that was the size of the entire screen, it was just like many other moments I've already discussed, blew my mind into pieces. I couldn't process how amazing this looked. The graphics looked awesome. The fact that a bullet bill could be as big as the screen looked awesome. I was like, how are video games this cool? That's what Super Mario World made me think. And then when I finally saw it, played it, heard it, the amazing music, the wonderful graphics, the insanely good level design, it's almost the best Mario has ever been, and it's without question the 3rd best console launch video game of all time. And coming in at number 2, the first runner-up for the best console launch video game of all time, The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess for the Wii. 2006, and yes, there was a GameCube version as well, but of course that wasn't a launch title, that was a swan song for the GameCube at the time. And that also came out several months after the Wii version because Nintendo very smartly focused on the Wii version of the Twilight Princess game to launch their brand new next generation console, the Nintendo Wii. And Twilight Princess by itself is an awesome game, but when you consider the fact that it was a launch for the revolutionary Nintendo Wii in 2006, even better. I talked about this actually on, I think, my last video, as funny as that is. I remember when I took my Nintendo Wii home and I had this brand new Legend of Zelda game to play. It's the most memorable period I have with any launch console in history because of all games to play for your brand new machine. It was a Legend of Zelda, a full 3D, fully realized, next generation, brand new Wii remote pointer waggling controller Zelda adventure. That was incredible. The graphics were insane. The music was insane. The dungeons are some of the best they've ever been. The scope of the game was massive. It was like Ocarina of Time times 100, at least it felt like at the time. And it was great, man. It's just, I mean, what more can be said? We've probably all played Twilight Princess as a Zelda game. It's great. I ranked it a couple of months ago, I ranked it on a Zelda video I made where I called it my 6th favorite Zelda game of all time. And again, the fact that that was a launch game for a brand new Nintendo console, unheard of, man. Nintendo did an amazing thing there. I think it was very, very smart. We all know they're doing it again with Breath of the Wild, but we have a couple of months to see how that all plays out. For now, when you just look at console launch video game history, you look at the Nintendo Wii, and Nintendo bringing out that amazing, humongous Zelda adventure. It took me 69 hours the first time I played through in 2006. It's an incredible thing. They achieved what is almost the impossible at that time. I love them for it. Thank you so much, Nintendo, for making a brand new Zelda available to play on my Wii. It helped make the Wii awesome in my eyes. And yeah, it's my 2nd favorite launch video game of all time. And so, coming in at number 1, I would do a drum roll, but we don't need a drum roll because I think at this point we all know what the best console launch video game of all time is. Super Mario 64 for the Nintendo 64 in 1996. It's everything that people have ever said. I can't imagine anyone making a list of the best launch games in history and not having Mario 64 at number 1. Not even just on every list, it should be number one. It's borderline indisputable. Yes, this is all subjective in its opinion, but this almost supersedes opinion. Mario 64 is the most amazing achievement almost ever in video game history. What that game did, ushering in true 3D gaming, ushering in true analog control with the ability to walk and crawl and run, all with how you move that joystick on the N64 controller. And again, they could have even half-assed it. It could have been a great Mario game, even if it was just an okay Mario game, simply because it was the first time it was in 3D, we had this new controller, and it was launching a console. But the fact that on top of all of those elements, the game itself was absolutely stellar, makes it even that much better. I mean, again, these are the kinds of things that pretty much Nintendo is the only company that can do this. They knocked this game out of the park. It was a huge adventure. There was an insane amount of variety. The music was memorable. The graphics were legendary. And you could beat the game in a myriad different ways. It was just so incredible. And running through that running through that castle, jumping into those paintings, finding all those worlds, talking to penguins, sliding down slides, throwing Bowser into the lava. It's incredible what you can do in that game. And to launch your brand new, fully 3D 1996 Nintendo 64 console with that masterpiece of a video game achievement. Incredible. And it's for those reasons and more, every reason that we all already know, why Super Mario 64 is without question, I think, the best launch video game in video game history. And so there you go. This was just for fun, guys. Those are what I think are the 10 best video game launch titles of all time. And it was really fun to put this together. I'm going to give one honorable mention here. I don't want to forget to give one special shout out for the game that almost made the list, and it's Luigi's Mansion on the GameCube. What a great freaking game Luigi's Mansion is. Old school Nintendo fans will remember how great that game was. So that's my one honorable mention title. There's been other great launch titles for sure, but whittling it down to this 10 was a lot of fun. Really cool to go through and look at all the history. What were the PS2 launch games, the Saturn launch games, the GameCube launch games, the 360 launch games, the NES launch games. It was really, really a lot of fun. A lot of games almost made this list, but I feel really good about this list of my personal 10. So what do you guys think? What do you think about my list of what I think are the 10 best launch games in video game history? And what games do you think should have made the list? Maybe that didn't. Some of you younger gamers that might not have experienced a lot of these console launches, what does it mean to you to hear about these games and think about launches back in the 80s and 90s, potentially before many of you might have even been born? Really interesting to hear that perspective, I think. So anyway, this was a lot of fun to do this video, guys. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. Share your thoughts about the list below. As always, thank you for tuning in. This is Rob of Rule of Two of You, and I will catch you guys next time on another video.